The black SUV rolled to a smooth stop in front of the Greenwich Country Club, its sleek frame catching the sunlight like it belonged. The valet barely touched the door before it opened, and Gloria stepped out, holding her purse with both hands like she was guarding something sacred. She didn't wear designer brands, but every inch of her said dignity. A crisp white blouse tucked into a navy skirt, the hem ironed to perfection. Her wide-brimmed hat matched her shoes, the kind of hat she wore to church when she wanted to honor her late husband. She paused, looking up at the grand stone building. She wasn't here for herself. She was here for her son. Inside those walls, her son, Derek Samuels, was about to finalize the biggest business deal of his life. A billion-dollar merger, generational wealth, corporate legacy. And he wanted his mother there, to see it, to witness what her sacrifices had built. She clutched her purse tighter and climbed the first step. "Excuse me," a voice snapped. A white woman in a navy uniform stood in her path. Stern posture, no smile. "Deliveries and staff go around the back." Gloria blinked, unsure. "I'm not staff. I'm here for lunch with my son, Derek Samuels." The woman didn't flinch. "Back entrance is to the left. That's policy." Gloria's chest tightened, but she stayed calm. "He's one of the owners." The woman crossed her arms. "That's what they all say." From across the patio, champagne glasses clinked. White guests lounged under striped umbrellas. And then, another voice, colder, sharper. "Well," said Victoria Hathaway, stepping forward in pearls and pastel silk, "I guess we're letting the help dine with us now." Someone chuckled. Another turned away, pretending not to hear. Gloria looked at Victoria without a word. She didn't need to speak. Her silence was louder than anything she could have said. Her fingers dug slightly into the leather strap of her purse, but her posture didn't break. From across the patio, Derek saw everything. He was mid-toast, glass raised, smile fading. His eyes locked onto his mother, and the fire in his chest ignited. He set the glass down without a word and stepped forward. That moment, right there, would burn into every headline across America. She sat in front of the mirror, smoothing the sleeve of her blouse like it still needed adjusting, though it didn't. The fabric was crisp, clean, the same outfit she'd carefully laid out the night before. Gloria never rushed dressing for something important. Today wasn't about fashion. It was about presence. And today, her son was stepping into a room full of old money, and she was going to be right there with him. Not behind him, not outside, with him. On her dresser sat an old photo of her late husband. Pressed suit, crooked smile, standing beside a young Derek in a school uniform that didn't quite fit. That memory stayed with her. So did the long nights, folded laundry, borrowed buses, and dinners made of whatever was left in the fridge. All of it led to this day. Meanwhile, a few miles away, inside a glass high-rise in Newark, Derek Samuels stood at the floor-to-ceiling window of his corner office, adjusting the cuffs of his suit. Behind him, a flurry of movement, assistants, attorneys, final prep. But his focus was on one thing. "She on her way?" he asked without turning. "Yes, sir," replied his assistant. "Just left the house." Derek nodded. He didn't say anything else. He didn't have to. Everyone in the room knew what this moment meant, not just for business, but for the boy who'd grown up eating boxed cereal while his mom worked double shifts. He stepped over to his desk and picked up a folded piece of paper. A list. The last 10 names of employees who'd been with the company since the warehouse days. He glanced over them quickly, then reached into a drawer and pulled out a handwritten note. "Deliver these by Monday," he said, passing both to his assistant. "No email, real envelopes, with bonuses." The assistant nodded again. Derek looked down at his phone and sent a quick message. "Wear the white hat. Dad would have smiled." Back at home, Gloria saw the text pop up just as she placed the hat gently over her freshly pressed hair. A quiet smile crept across her face. She placed her hand over her heart for a moment, closed her eyes, and whispered a short prayer. Let them see him for who he is. Let them know he came from love. Then she stepped outside into the morning sun. The SUV was waiting. The driver opened the door. She climbed in slowly, knees a little stiff, but spirit unshaken. She wasn't worried about wealth or deals or press releases. She was going to see her baby shine. The gravel crunched under Gloria's shoes as she stepped out of the SUV once more, now standing on the elegant stone path leading up to the country club's front entrance. The doors were tall, trimmed in gold, and flanked by two uniformed doormen who barely glanced in her direction. But before she could take a single step forward, that same white woman from earlier appeared again. Lips tight, arms crossed, eyes sharp. "I'm sorry, ma'am. I already told you," she said, this time with more firmness. "Deliveries and catering staff use the rear entrance, around the left." Gloria stopped in her tracks. She didn't raise her voice, didn't flinch. "I'm not staff," she said slowly, with quiet grace. "I'm here for the luncheon with my son, Derek Samuels." The woman blinked. "I heard you the first time," she said, clearly unmoved. "But unless your name is on the guest list." "You can check the list," Gloria cut in, not angry, just steady. "My name is Gloria Samuels." Still, the woman didn't move. Her tone shifted to something colder. "Ma'am, it's policy." Then, like a blade slicing through warm air, another voice entered the scene. "Well, well," came a smooth drawl. "They'll just let anybody in these days, won't they?" Gloria turned her head slightly. A white woman in her 60s stood just a few feet away, pearls draped down her blouse, hair stiff with spray, heels clicking against the stone like she owned the place. Victoria Hathaway. She didn't even look at Gloria when she spoke next. Her eyes scanned the horizon, her wine glass lazily swirling. "Are we dining with the cleaning staff now?" Laughter, soft, cruel laughter, from two white men leaning against the marble railing, sipping bourbon and pretending not to watch. Gloria didn't move, not a single twitch. Her hands tightened slightly on the strap of her purse. Her eyes didn't drop. She held still like the church had taught her, but inside the sting was sharp and deep. Not because it was the first time, but because it was supposed to be the last. A moment passed, then something changed in the air. From across the patio, Derek Samuels had just finished his toast. He held his glass mid-air, smile frozen, laughter all around him, until his eyes met his mother's. He didn't hear the joke, didn't need to. He saw the pain in her jaw, the tension in her hand, the way her body had stiffened just enough to say, "Don't make a scene." But the scene was already made. He lowered the champagne glass slowly, deliberately. Around him, conversation continued. No one noticed the shift, except the people who knew him well. He started walking, calmly, purposefully. Meanwhile, Victoria had already turned her back. The staffer looked embarrassed now, glancing between Gloria and the rest of the guests. Gloria didn't speak. She didn't need to. Derek was coming. And no one at that club was ready for what he was about to do. Inside the dining hall, everything was set. crisp white linens draped across long tables. A champagne tower glittered near the window. At the center of it all sat a thick stack of legal documents, the final merger papers, worth over $900 million. Derek's chair at the head of the table sat empty. The room buzzed with low conversation, laughter, clinking glasses. Everyone assumed he was taking a moment to collect himself before signing. After all, this was the deal of the decade. But then the glass doors opened. Derek walked in, not smiling, not nodding, not playing host, just still, focused, and silent. His top attorney, Preston, stood first. "Everything okay?" Derek didn't answer. He walked slowly to the table, stopped behind the signing chair, and placed both hands on the backrest. Everyone looked at him now. Even Victoria Hathaway, halfway through a glass of Chardonnay, turned with a faint smirk. Derek looked around the room, paused. "You all know how much this deal meant," he said, voice calm but cold. "This merger would have changed everything, for logistics, for infrastructure, for the future." Victoria smiled politely. She leaned forward, brushing her pearls. "So, let's not delay. Shall we?" Derek's eyes didn't blink. "I'm not signing." The room froze. Someone let out a quiet, confused laugh. "Wait, what?" Victoria tilted her head. "Excuse me?" Derek pulled the chair back and sat down, but not at the signing spot. He slid over to the far corner seat, away from the papers. "You heard me." Preston stepped in quickly. "Derek, if there's a concern, we can discuss it. Don't make a decision based on emotion." "It's not emotion," Derek said. "It's clarity." Victoria's smile started to crack. "Surely this isn't about that little misunderstanding at the entrance." "That little misunderstanding," Derek said, cutting her off, "was directed at my mother. The woman who took 3 buses every day to clean houses so I could make it through school." Victoria's eyes narrowed. "I didn't know she was your mother." "You didn't care," he replied. "You looked at her and saw someone beneath you." Preston cleared his throat. "This is a $900 million agreement." Derek leaned forward. "And that's exactly why I'm walking. Because if I sign this deal, I'm telling every young black entrepreneur that money matters more than dignity." Victoria rolled her eyes. "Don't be dramatic." He stared at her. "Don't be racist." The silence that followed was louder than any slam or shout could have been. Derek stood. "There are deals you lose sleep over not signing. This isn't one of them." He turned, walked out, and didn't look back. And in that moment, $900 million vanished. Not because of contracts or lawsuits, but because a son chose his mother's respect over a billion-dollar handshake. The story hit the internet before Derek even reached his car. A guest at the luncheon had recorded part of the exchange on their phone. No faces, just voices. Victoria's sharp remark. Derek's words. The sound of stunned silence. And then the headline that would ripple through every corner of the internet by morning. Black CEO walks away from $900 million deal after mother insulted by white billionaire. At first, it started small. A business podcast from Philadelphia broke it. Then came Tech Pulse, Forbes, Business Insider. Within hours, the story wasn't about numbers. It was about why those numbers didn't matter. By noon, Twitter threads exploded. TikToks stitched the audio with captions. Influencers made videos saying, "This is what integrity looks like." The quote, "Respect isn't negotiable," trended globally by sundown. Cable news picked it up that night. Derek's name filled the chyrons. CEO turns down $900 million in defense of mother's dignity. And quietly, in living rooms and break rooms across the country, black families watched and nodded. They'd all felt it. The cold stare, the polite dismissal, the assumed status. But this time, someone said no. At the Hathaway estate, the atmosphere shifted from smug to shaken. PR teams scrambled to draft statements. Some board members questioned Victoria's actions behind closed doors. Meanwhile, Gloria sat at her kitchen table in Trenton, watching the coverage unfold with a cup of tea, and the same hat folded neatly beside her. Her phone buzzed constantly. Family, church friends, strangers. One message simply said, "Your son just changed the game." She didn't say much, just smiled, small and steady, and whispered to herself, "He was always that boy." Elsewhere, people began sharing their own stories. A Latina wedding planner posted how a wealthy client once demanded she not look the guests in the eye. A black chef described being told to stay out of sight during a fundraiser. And every time, the stories ended the same way. That's why Derek Samuels is a hero. He didn't plan to lead a movement. But when a man chooses values over a vault, the world takes notice. And for the first time, the Hathaway name wasn't trending for legacy. It was trending for disgrace. Inside Derek's Newark headquarters, things weren't as quiet as the internet made them seem. The world may have been cheering, but behind closed doors, pressure was building. Investors called non-stop. Emails flooded in from partners asking for reassurances. Headlines were loud, but so were the doubts. Derek stood at the head of the conference table, facing his executive team. The same team that had built the company with him from warehouse days to skyscrapers. Elliot, the CFO, broke the silence first. "We need to talk long-term, not just this week, not just headlines. You walked away from $1 billion, Derek." "I know exactly what I walked away from," Derek replied calmly. Julian, the COO, leaned forward. "We had global infrastructure on the table. Trucks, ports, warehousing, 3 continents." "And what do you think we're standing on now?" Derek asked. "What built this place? Respect? Loyalty? My mother's hands?" Elliot shook his head. "Look, I admire what you did, but the board's nervous. Hathaway is drafting breach claims. They're coming for you legally." "Let them," Derek said. "They can explain in court why insulting my mother was part of their negotiation strategy." Nia, head of marketing, finally spoke. "Derek, I'm with you. I really am. But you've become more than a CEO now. You're a symbol. People are calling you the man who turned down generational wealth for his mother's respect." "I didn't do it for applause," he said. "We know that," she said gently. "But others won't. You need to shape the narrative before they twist it. Hathaway's already moving. Quietly." Derek stared out the window. The city moved below, buses, bikes, people trying to make ends meet. He thought of Gloria's hands cleaning floors, her prayers at night, her face when he helped her back into that SUV. He turned back to his team. "We built this from nothing, and if we fall, we'll build it again. But I won't rot it from the inside just to stay standing." The room went silent. Then, slowly, one by one, heads nodded. "We hold," Julian said at last. "Even if it gets ugly." "It already is," Derek replied. "But at least now it's honest." What none of them knew yet was that Hathaway's fallout wasn't over. Inside their estate, Victoria still refused to apologize. But shareholders were panicking. Brand analysts issued quiet warnings. Even their trusted PR firm hesitated to touch the story. Victoria's son Clinton slammed the boardroom table. "Do you even realize how bad this looks? The man defended his mother. You mocked her. That's what people remember." Victoria only muttered, "People forget." But this time, she was wrong. Because respect wasn't a moment, it had become a movement. And it wasn't fading. It was just getting started. The hospital room smelled like ginger ale and old magazines. Gloria sat upright in the bed, gown neatly pressed like she'd ironed it herself. Her eyes were calm, but Derek could see the fatigue underneath, the kind she'd never admit to. "I told them I just stood up too fast," she said, brushing off the fuss. "Didn't need all these machines beeping at me." He didn't smile. Not fully. "They said your iron's low. Heart rhythm, too." "They always say that. I'm fine." But he knew better. He saw it in her hands. The same hands that once packed his school lunch and scrubbed other people's sinks until her knuckles cracked. He sat down beside her and said nothing for a while. Later that night, they watched reruns on the tiny screen. A laugh track filled the silence. Gloria's head tilted slightly. "You did good, baby," she whispered. He looked over. "Did you just call me baby in front of the nurse?" "I brought you into this world. I get to call you whatever I want." This time, he smiled, but it faded fast. "I've been thinking," he said, "about what you told me. Legacy." She didn't speak, just listened. "I want to start something. For warehouse crews, drivers, single moms. Real support, health care, child care, school help. Not just workshops and slogans." Gloria looked at him, eyes warm. "That sounds like you." "I want to name it after you." She blinked fast, swallowed once. "You don't need to do that." "I do," Derek said quietly, "because you built me." 2 weeks later, the Gloria Initiative launched with no red carpet, no press tour, just a website, a short video, and partnerships with 3 nonprofits. It caught fire. Within days, families across the country shared it online. Workers posted selfies with their kids, tagging the foundation. Local news picked it up, then national. The story shifted, from confrontation to construction, from calling out broken rooms to building better ones. At the first community event, Derek stood under a white tent beside folding tables. Food trucks lined the lot. Kids got their faces painted. Warehouse workers laughed with their families. Derek took the mic briefly. "I walked away from $900 million, he said. "People said I was crazy. But this," he looked around, "this is worth more than any deal." Later that evening, as the sun dipped low, he stood quietly beside his mother. She held a paper plate with ribs and potato salad. He didn't say much, just looked at her, then at the crowd. And in that moment, he understood something deeper than headlines, contracts, or trending clips. Legacy isn't what you leave behind. It's what you live through, and what you refuse to bury in silence.